Hello, Pokemaniacs. I'm Natanis Likens. How are y'all doing today? And today, this is going to be a little bit of a talky episode. Yeah, we're just going to talk about some Pokemon stuff related to me and some of my favorites. And the reason for this is a few days ago, I saw a post on Reddit about what is your favorite starter. And I got to be honest, I don't have a particular favorite starter. Uh, it's kind of odd. There's not one that I actually prefer over the other. However, there are a whole bunch of them that I definitely prefer over others. And that's kind of what I want to get in today. So here we are. I put a sheet up there with all of the starters that you can possibly have, depending on which game you are talking about, or even in other media such as Pixelmon, where you could possibly choose any one of them. So we're just going to go down the line in order of generations because, as I've stated in a previous video, I have played every single major game since Red and Blue. With the exception of Scarlet and Violet, I haven't had access to those just yet. So we're just going to start this off, and before we really get going on that, I want to talk about, the type that I typically prefer. So as you know, we have fire, grass, and water, always your basic starters. Is there a particular one that I prefer over the others? Yes, I prefer fire starters over everything else. That is just who I am and everything. I'm more of a fire type person. In fact, if I had an element, it would probably be fire. Um, and there's actually a few reasons for this. In that previous video, I also briefly touched on the fact that Bulbasaur was actually my original first Pokemon. And then I joined the bandwagon over to Charmander, and that is pretty much where I found myself using fire starters all the time. Uh, so I wanted to bring this up just briefly. Grass types are something that I very rarely ever use. And this is we got to get into the kind of mechanics of Pokemon and the typing to kind of get an understanding for why grass is probably one of the least used types of all the types for me. And that is mostly because the the types that grass cover can easily be covered by other types that can also cover a wider range of types. For instance, grass mostly used for covering ground and rock. Well, if you have a water, you got both of those covered, then you also cover fire. Yeah. So there really has not been a case where I absolutely had to have a grass type of any sort on my team. Fire, on the other hand, as many of the games have a plethora of areas where you constantly are running into grass types. Fire has always been something that has just been a staple of my team. I've always had to have a fire. Water, on the other hand, is one of those that is situational. And what I mean by that is in every single Pokemon game, there's always some sort of section that has you going through water, and the only way you can do that is by using a Pokemon to surf across it. It's one of the puppies downstairs. Or whatever that game's mechanic is. So in Sword and Shield, that mechanic was the bicycle, and in one of the others, Scarlet and Violet, you have the Pokemon mount that you use. So you don't really need a water type Pokemon to get around in those. As far as gym battles, again, really rock and ground gyms are the only ones you really need a water type for. And again, it's just kind of very situational. Now, I did go through and I wanted to break down why I use fire over any of the other types with the idea of how many types of gyms are the most common. And I went to look it up. I found some interesting results, but they didn't all match. So I decided to go through, tally them all up myself, and the results I got was surprising. Now, we are only counting mainstream games, and in one of those games, one of the gyms absolutely depends on what your starter was. So there's kind of a little bit of number fudging going on there because if you pick a fire starter, then the gym leader's water. If you pick a grass starter, then the gym leader's fire. So it's kind of like this odd. It doesn't really matter which one this is. So I just counted it for 3 spots there. So our top 6 all are equal at 5 gym appearances, and that is electric, fighting, grass, ice, rock, and water. Believe it or not, all of those are tied at 5. Interesting thing that I noticed on this too is we've only had one, according to what I was finding and looking through all of them, and I thought this was really weird. We've only had one poison and one dark type gem. I don't think that's actually correct. I think we've had 2 poisons because I do remember that there was a gem that was classified as poison in Generation 1. Um, but according to what I found, it's not. It's actually I believe it was either psychic or ghost is what it was actually classified as, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I remember there being at least one more poison type than that, but that is what I found. And yes, the puppies are going to bark. But anyway, let's get into it. So with Gen 1 starters, as you can see, we got Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle. Charmander was definitely my favorite of the 3, and Bulbasaur just ended up kind of taking the back end. So yeah, all 3 of those absolutely would use them. Squirtle, I would use it over some of the other water types. It is not my favorite water type, but I would use it over some of the others. Okay, so next up we get to Gen 2. And Gen 2's Pokemon starters are probably the most mediocre of all of them in terms of both stats, abilities they learned, and their overall design as far as visual appeal. They are the most basic. I still would use a Cyndaquil over some of the others because Typhlosion is kind of cool, and in fact, in Legends Arceus, that is what I went with, the Cyndaquil, mostly because the other 2 I don't like at all. Chikorita, I have a hard time even wanting to use Chikorita, regardless of not wanting to use grass types. Chikorita would probably be on the bottom of my list as far as grass types to actually use. Totodile, I absolutely love Totodile. I love Feraligatr. A shame I haven't used it too much, but it is one of my favorite water types. So yeah, we got that going on, but this is what it looks like. Yeah, Chikorita, out. Can't stand Chikorita. Okay, next up we got Gen 3. And if you have seen my comments on any of M&J TV's subreddit or even his videos or PM7's videos, you know already I absolutely hate Gen 3 Pokemon. Um, I don't like Torchic, I do not like Blaziken, I don't like Trico or Sceptile, I don't like Mudkip, and definitely I hate Swampert. Swampert is by far the ugliest looking starter out of all of them. I cannot stand Gen 3. So yeah, that's what we're looking at right there. Now, I want you to pay attention to what's happened here. So pretty much Gen 1 and Gen 2, love them all, except for Chikorita. We're not going to talk about Chikorita. Gen 3, I can't stand. And the reason I want you to pay attention to this is because over the years, a pattern has emerged. I don't know what that pattern means, but we do have kind of a pattern going on. So let's go to Gen 4. Gen 4 introduced probably my absolute favorite fire starter of them all in Chimchar and Infernape. I absolutely love Chimchar. It is by far one of my favorites. Tortwig, I like Tortwig and probably one of the higher grass types that you might see me use. Piplup, um, okay, so I'm not a big fan of Imperion. I can't remember its name off the top of my head. I should have put that down in my notes, but I didn't. Not a big fan of how it looks. However, as a water steel type, I do like that one. It is pretty dang good. So yeah, Gen 4, all of those get a pass from me. Now, Gen 5. Gen 5 has some of the oddest evolutions among them. Like, I definitely think Gen 3's evolution chains are kind of weird, though they do kind of sort of make sense. Gen 5's evolutions don't really make sense. Of course, I did go with T-Pig in Gen 5. I absolutely do love T-Pig. I do not like its evolutions. T-Pig itself, great. I love T-Pig. Snivy, if you're a Pokemon fan and you like Snivy, you're an idiot. Yeah, there's a reason all of us should hate Snivy. There's no reason why that Snivy should have won against Pikachu. None. Zero. Zip. There's no reason why that Snivy should have ever won. Oshawott. Oshawott is probably my least favorite water starter of all of them. The walrus thing it turns into in its final form is just ridiculous looking. It's not the most ridiculous one in my opinion, but I'm not a big fan of it. So yeah, this is what this looks like. Okay, so hang on. So we got I like Gen 1, I like Gen 2, I hate Gen 3, I like Gen 4, I hate Gen 5. Hmm. Do you notice a pattern emerging? Okay, so we move on to Gen 6 with the X and Y Pokemon. Um, Finnegan. Okay, Finnegan and its evolutions, I do like them. They're not my favorite fire type of them all, but I really do like Finnegan, much like T-Pig. I absolutely love the first stage, and that's about it. Chespin, with it being grass type, I still have not really used it. Not a big fan. Froakie, on the other hand, is the Pokemon that broke the chain, ladies and gentlemen. I absolutely love Greninja, and it being a water dark type being one of the types that I absolutely want on my team to deal with ghosts and psychics. I love Greninja, and Greninja is probably my absolute favorite water type. Like, there's no joke. I put 3 check marks on Froakie. I love Froakie that much. If I had to choose a favorite out of all the starters, it probably would be Froakie. I absolutely love that little guy. So next up, we got Gen 7 with Sun and Moon. Can you hear the disappointment in my voice? Okay, as much as I don't like the look of the Gen 3 starters, the Gen 7 starters are abominations. Okay, so Litten, much like Finnegan and T-Pig, I love Litten. I cannot stand its final evolution of being a luchador. And if you don't know what a luchador is, it's a masked wrestler. And I can't stand that. It is absolutely terrible. Rowlet turning into Deciduine, if I'm even saying that close to correct. Um, Okay, I do like the marksman look of it. However, they went with the Japanese or Chinese look of a marksman, of an archer. Not a big fan of that. Um, yeah, I don't even like the revamp of it in Legends Arceus. I I can't I can't justify that one. I'm not a big fan. Puplio. Okay, Puplio is the one that I ended up choosing for Sun and Moon. Um, And to be frank, the reason why I chose that one is I wanted to try and break the habit of always going with with fire, even though Froakie had previously broken that. So I was sitting there looking at them. I didn't want to know anything about them. I didn't want to know what their evolutions look like. I wanted it to be a surprise to me, so I avoided anything Pokemon social media so that I would not see what the starter's final evolution was. Um, I chose Poplio because I was sitting there thinking, okay, what is going to be the reason why I choose one of you guys? I was like, smile. If one of you smiles, I'm picking that one. Well, Poplio smiles. Um, so I picked Poplio and began playing the game, and then I got to its final evolution, which is this funky dog mermaid. Yeah, so then I decided to look up what the starters look like in their final evolution because I was disgusted. Now, as you can see, the pattern in the past, I was already thinking these are going to be absolutely atrocities, aren't they? I'm not going to like any of these. Sure enough, when I looked them up and decided to look at their evolutions, breaking my own rule about not looking at their final forms, I discovered that I couldn't stand any of them. Needless to say, this is the only game out of the entire series that I abandoned my starter. I can't stand any of the Gen 7 starters. I would definitely choose either a Gen 3 or a Gen 5 starter over the Gen 7s. I absolutely cannot stand them. They are horrible. Okay, moving on to Gen 8 with Sword and Shield. And this is interesting. Um, so let's just go down the line and talk a little bit about each one of these and their aesthetic. So, Score Bunny is essentially a football player or soccer player if you were here in the States. Um, yeah, I played soccer growing up, so I absolutely love soccer. I am going to keep calling it soccer, so I am sorry to the rest of the world if you're seeing this and you know it as football. It's just so here in the States, anybody hearing me say that understands what sport I'm talking about. Um, I absolutely love Score Bunny. Score Bunny is the one I went with, and was part of my team for the majority of my playthrough of Sword and Shield. I decided to do something different in Sword and Shield. I decided to make a theme-based team. So that meant using a lot of Pokemon that I usually don't use, and also dropping my starter off in the Pokebox. Not something I would have done otherwise because I absolutely love Cinderace. Cinderace is amazing. As a soccer player, I love this Pokemon. It's one of my favorite starters. Um, Grokey, and I should have put the name down, but his aesthetic, being some kind of, I guess it's like a Jamaican drummer type of look that they gave him. I'm not really sure what it's supposed to be. Um, Interesting. That's another thing about me. I actually am a drummer. I am not any kind of skilled drummer, but I do have a drum set. I do have a pair of sticks sitting somewhere. They're way over there. We're not going to worry about it. But yeah, I do have this. I have a practice pad right here. So I absolutely love Grokey. Grokey is amazing. Much like Chespin, though, I have not actually used it. Um, but being a drummer, I absolutely love that. Uh, Subble, Subble, however you say that. At first, I thought this was just some kind of emo water serpent thing. And then later somebody told me that this is actually supposed to mimic James Bond and the whole like action thriller spy type character. Um, I'm a big James Bond fan. I mean, if you're a true male in the US, you probably are a big James Bond fan. So I absolutely love Subble and its forms. Uh, Again, it's another type that I have not actually used, but I do like this Pokemon. It is really good. I really like the aesthetic, and all three of these are based on aesthetics that I absolutely enjoy. So, wow, like I love these guys. So yeah, these guys absolutely get a pass from me. I love them. Um, Gen 9. Okay, Gen 9. As I've stated, I have not acquired Scarlet or Violet. I think I would end up getting Scarlet, possibly. It may have been Violet. I do remember there was a regional. I was going to say regional variant. That's not right. There was a game exclusive in one of them, which mean I had to get the one that I didn't want instead. So I think for the regional variant, I said it again. For the exclusive Pokemon, I think it was Violet that I actually needed to get instead of Scarlet. Um, Unfortunately, but aside from that, part of the reasons why I haven't gone is first off, money. You got to be able to buy it. And the second reason is after seeing all the reviews and hearing about all the bugs in the game, and then seeing what they did with the character, basically making it to where the character is not really male, not really female, meaning you can't really make the character look one way or the other. They all look the same. Sounds like they're trying to push an agenda to me, but it's really the bugs in the game, like how buggy it is. Like what I'm sure you guys have seen all the TikToks, shorts here on YouTube, and all that stuff of how buggy the game is. I'm not really a big fan of that. But with the starters we have are Sprigato, Coco, and Quaxley, if I'm saying that correctly. Um, okay, not a big fan of Coco and the whole fire alligator crocodile kind of look that it has. Quaxley, Quaxel, whatever you say, being that it's a duck dancer. Yeah, yeah, okay. Not a huge fan. Not a huge fan at all. Sprig Sprigatito, Sprigati, however you say that, would probably be the starter that I would choose. Probably the first time in forever that I would go with a grass type. But it has the same problem of some of the others that many people have complained about, and that is it starts off on all four legs, and then it evolves to stand up on two legs. Like Pokemon Company, why? Why do you keep doing this to us? If it starts off on all four legs, please leave it on all four legs. I would have loved to see Litten and a line of Pokemon that are always on their four legs instead of the ridiculousness that we got for its final evolution. I mean, even its second stage is still on four legs, and then suddenly it's a giant wrestler. Like like Gen 7 Pokemon have probably the worst second evolution to third evolution change. Um, and Gen 9 is just I don't get it. Like somebody had told me that it's supposed to be like a carnival kind of theme where you got like dancers, magicians, and something else. I forget what Fue Coco is supposed to be, but uh, the water duck is supposed to be like a dancer. The cat is supposed to be like a magician, and then whatever the Foy Coco is supposed to be. Not really a big fan of any of those. Uh, Sprigato is probably the one I would go with for the same reasons that I do like Litten, uh, Finnegan, and T-Pig. I think its first stage looks absolutely adorable. Love to have that, and only that. I would never evolve it. Um, but yeah, so this is what we look like here. So, as you can see, since Gen 2, there has been this awkward pattern of I like that set of Pokemon, I don't like that set of Pokemon, I like the next generation set of Pokemon, I don't like the next generation set of Pokemon. It's just been this ongoing pattern, and it has held steady for a very, very long time. Like, it's surprising to me that this always is the case. Like, one generation I love them, the next generation I hate them, one generation I love them, one generation I hate them. So yeah, we've gotten a pattern going on. So I imagine whenever we get around to Gen 10, it'll be interesting to see if that pattern continues and we get a set of starter Pokemon that I also do like. We'll see. I don't know if there's any kind of reasoning behind this. Like, I do believe that there are two main companies, one located in Japan and one somewhere else. I'm wondering if possibly the Japan company is the one that makes all the Pokemon that I really do like, and the other one, wherever else in the world it is, makes all the ones that I absolutely cannot stand. Um, but yeah, as far as like some of my favorites, I will say that as far as the fire types are concerned, I would most likely want a Chimchar as my first Pokemon, though a Charmander would be just as good, or even a Scorbunny. At the very bottom of the list, I would definitely not take Litten, because I can't stand its evolutions. Up from that, I would probably take Torchic, and then up from that, I would probably take T-Pig, even though much like Litten, I only like its first stage. As far as the grass types, I'm not really a huge fan of grass types. Um, Most likely the one I would probably take is Groki. As far as water types, absolutely would take Froakie over everything. Froakie is by far my favorite. We said that before. Up from Froakie, I'm really not sure because I haven't really used any of these. I would probably go for Sobble second, simply because I've never actually used it, and I would love to go through a series and use Sobble. Um, Piplup would probably be up there, and then I would probably get Totodile or Squirtle last. I would not touch Poplio whatsoever. Um, Mudkip would be next to the bottom on that list, and Quagsole would probably be above that, though Quagsole may also be at the bottom. I'm not sure which one I dislike more, Poplio's evolution line or Quagsly, whatever the duck's name is. But yeah, there you go. That is how I feel about the starters. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you did enjoy it, please leave a like. And if you have absolutely love what I've been doing here on YouTube, think about subscribing for more variation and content instead of just covering one thing. We're doing a whole bunch of different things. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now and catch 'em all.